Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today, I have a pretty special and unique episode for you. This is going to be an unnumbered Riftbound 101 episode because we have an interview with the folks from Challenger TCG. They were super kind and made some time to speak with me after some pretty harrowing weeks back to back in Bologna and Vegas, and then at CCS and PPG events. So please tune in and check it out. We talk about a lot of stuff, including how Challenger TCG works, who makes up the team, how people approach relationships with each other, events, and even the game of Riftbound in general. Small warning, around the 6 minute mark or so, there's a transition. We had some early recording snafus, so we re-recorded the intro. So if you see some transitions, it's because of that and a little bit of knock-on cold left over from some of the competitive events. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Riftbound 101. This is a special unnumbered version of the show where we're doing an interview for the first time, and we have the three founders, or three of the four founders of Challenger TCG. I'm Andrei Zanescu, and I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves today, starting with Collin.
Hi, I'm Collin Kaiser. If y'all have been playing Riftbound, then hopefully you've seen my name at the top of some tournament results one way or another. I've been playing since the game came out, and previous to that, I've been playing card game for pretty much my entire life at this point, close to 20 years. I've been playing various card games, starting with Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh, as most people did, moving into Pokemon, and then playing a bunch of card games that the majority of people probably haven't ever heard of. Um, my most successful was probably Flesh and Blood, where I was able to win two callings, which are some of their higher level events, and was able to kind of start my competitive playing career around that time, as well as a couple of other games such as Argent Saga, Dragon Ball Super, Battle Spirits, all that sort of stuff. And before finally moving into Riftbound here, which has been quite successful for me. Outside of that, I ran a card store for about 6 years. So I've seen card games from kind of both elements as a competitive player, as well as a local store owner who just loved to see their local players show up and play some games and have some fun. So I've definitely been around the block and made card games my entire life. I've never really had a job outside of either playing card games or selling cards to people. So you could definitely say that it's been pretty much the sole thing that I've done in my life. So yeah.
Hi, my name's Antyn, also known as Villionaire. If you guys have checked out the Challenger TCG YouTube, you've probably heard my voice or seen me in the videos. I'm our main video editor, and I handle all the content side of things for the most part. I've been playing TCGs for almost 30 years. I'm the oldest member of the team, and I love playing Dazzling Aurora, much to Colin's dismay. Yeah, that's me.
Hey, I'm Alex Blandin. I've been playing competitive card games for about 15 years or so now. I started playing card games back in 2002 when a set called The Legend of the Blue Eyes came out. For those of you who know Yu-Gi-Oh at all, if you've ever watched our live streams, you've probably seen the old man yells at cloud act that I do once in a while. And if you've ever gotten coaching with us, you've certainly heard my voice. I definitely do. I do all of our coaching for Challenger TCG. Yeah, so pretty much a short synopsis of me. I've played pretty much not as many games as Antyn, but pretty much every game that you've never heard of that came out since 2010. So
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I'm just going to start us off real quick with like kind of an intro question. So people who are on my channel, I think may have heard of you, and people who obviously are on Challenger TCG know who you are. But for those who might be new to the show, either of the shows, how would you describe Challenger TCG to somebody who's just like not familiar with what it is that you do? And I'm going to tee it up for Collin.
Yeah, so this is something that has been a new project for us that we've started here in about the past 6 months. That's become a kind of a content brand and as well as a team. So we have a testing team that we all work with together to make sure that we're at the top of our game and know how to play the game properly, how we're doing it at the most competitive level, obviously given our results as well to back it up. That's all done through our team, being Challenger TCG, and all of our great members that we have a part of it. And we take that information and try to give that out to the viewers who want to crush their local, anywhere from their local events to even our best performing member being Shizzle, who top forward Vegas with me out of 1,700 people as a member of our Discord. Um, and pretty much anywhere in between, we want to disseminate all the information that we've learned throughout the years to people. And I think it's been something that we've been successful through either our Discord or our guides and all those sorts of things. So it's been, as you heard from the intro, we've probably got 60 years of card game experience between the three of us. So we're just trying to find the best way to use that information to teach all of the new players getting into this game, especially with it being a Riot IP. There are a lot of new players getting into card games for the first time and wanting them to really understand what it means to play a card game and how to do that at a competitive level. And like a bunch of different card games that we met each other through, where it would basically become a thing where we'd start a new card game that would pop up. We'd pick up like one or two good players, and then we'd move on to the next one. And this kind of cycle repeated until we got here to Riftbound, which is where we decided that we wanted to make it a little bit more of like an actual proper content brand and expand it out more so than what it was previously, which was just focused entirely on winning tournaments and doing all that. We wanted to become more of like an actual content brand where people can use the information. As you've already mentioned, we've got probably over 60 years of combined card game playing experience between the three of us, and use that to actually teach people how to play the game and understand from like a more conceptual level, I'd suppose, just given that we've been in the position of not only just playing the same card game for those 60 years combined, but we've played tens to 20s, 30s different card games. And each time we're always at the top as soon as those card games drop. So it's more about like the fundamental understanding of card games and how we approach them on like I said, that fundamental level, and being able to teach people those sorts of rules that kind of are across every single game. I think is something that's very unique to our brand and has kind of shown from the success that we've had from our players in our Discord and our community. But yeah, put it simply, we do guides. We have our private Discord community as well. All that's supported through Metafy right now in order to help teach people the game, especially it being Riftbound, being a previously like entirely video game centric company that was running it. There's been a lot of people that have their first time experience with card games in Riftbound just because they loved League of Legends, they love the IP, they want to try it out, and I think it was just kind of the prime example for us to start teaching people how to play the game at like that competitive level, right?
Yeah. Do you find that the fundamentals that you've been tracking across a bunch of other games do translate to Riftbound, or has that been a challenge for the team to like integrate into the content? And I'm happy to open that up to Alex or Antyn if either of you want to jump in.
Yeah, I would say that for me at least, I know Colin mentioned like 20 or 30 TCGs. For me, that's like rookie numbers, because I'm pushing like 50 or 60 easily that I've played. But yeah, I would say like you learn a lot when you play a lot of different games, especially if you have to have a really good team though. Like I had a very competitive group of friends even back before I met Alex and started really traveling the world and playing card games on a more serious level. Like, and we all just basically, for whatever reason, all of us just were hardcore grinders, even though we mostly only just played locally, and we would just get together like every single day and grind every TCG you could imagine and really just try to optimize and become better. And so I've definitely say that I've seen a lot. It's funny we mentioned L5R earlier, but L5R is definitely a card game that I feel like some fundamentals from that translated at least really well for me into Riftbound, because in L5R you have to go to, there's like 4 different battlefields. Imagine like I'm translating a little loosely here, but imagine there's like 4 different battlefields to go to instead of 2. And yeah, I mean you only really have 1 stat as well in that. I mean you have 2 stats in that game, but for combat purposes you really only have 1 stat. And when you lose a battle, like you lose all of your units in that game as well. So like battles were really punishing. Combats, you really have to go in and have a good exchange of cards and know that you're going to win before you can just like commit to a combat. Because if you just lose a lot of your units in a single combat, just like in this game, you can basically lose the game on the spot. So I do feel like that resource management has translated pretty well into this game for me. I'm sure plenty of other. I mean, I played One Piece as well, where the energy system is kind of similar, the rune system. Um, and in One Piece, there's a color called purple, which has like in their energy is called dawn instead of runes. But basically, in that game, purple has a dawn minus, which is basically you take rune cards and put them to the bottom, just like paying power essentially. So like if you've played purple in One Piece, you're probably used to like the power system. So things like that, I do feel like there's a lot of little fundamentals that you learn, and if you really like hone those skills in other games, they translate pretty well.
Awesome. I guess we jumped into like a lot of the structure of the team and the transferability of information from one game to another, but you've both mentioned being friends, grinding out different games over years, and like meeting each other. So I guess the big question I should ask you is, how did you all meet, or who met who first? And I guess I can ask Alex since he hasn't had the chance to.
I think that question should start with Alex, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
So I met Antyn back in Forcewell in 2015. Actually, him and my brother played in the finals of a GP. I was very intoxicated at the time, but I would like to think I have this this kind of gift for just making friends with people. Maybe a little bit making enemies with them too. But I am a very socially outgoing guy, and usually I kind of have this as I go through all these TCGs. I have these people. I meet them. I like them. I think they're good, and I go, "Hey, do you want to join whatever team I have at the time?" So me and Antyn met in Forcewell. Me and Antyn actually weren't on a team together, but we did test together a lot. And then like he kind of got stuck in this like what I call my Rolodex of TCG players. That every time there's a new card game I want to play, I pull out this Rolodex and go, all right. I'm like kind of like I describe it like Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11 when he's assembling his crew and calling all his people up. So so I met Antyn in 2015, and he kind of got added to the Rolodex of people I call up whenever I'm trying to play a new game. And then met Collin in 2019 playing Argent Saga. He was on my team at that time, and again, kind of got added to the Rolodex of people, and just yeah, kind of that's actually how most of the team knows each other, is through me. They're people that I've kind of again assembled in this Rolodex. And when Riftbound came up, I hit up Antyn. I actually called Collin as well and said, "Hey guys, this Riftbound game's coming out in a few months." Antyn already knew about it and was already planning to play. Collin, I called up and said, "Hey, this new game's coming out," and he's like, "Great, if they got money, let's do it." And yeah, and then the rest of the team, a lot of these guys too, are same thing. Called them up and said, "Hey guys, new game coming out. Like, let's get the crew back together for one last heist type deal." So yeah, that's and then like I said, a lot of these guys I've known for the last 10 plus years. Our other owner, Matt, he's one of my closest friends. I've known him since I was like probably 13 or 14 years old. So just again through card games. So it's kind of just it's kind of something that's just assembled over time.
I love the metaphor of like the Ocean's 11, which almost makes me want to like ask you for the correspondence, like who does what, like who's the demo guy, who's your contortionist.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Matt, who is not with us today, and I think this is maybe one of the things that viewers might not be the most aware of, is the team is I mean it's you three and Matt is my understanding, but there are a lot of other folks. So I kind of wanted to ask you how the team is structured. Like, are there different roles, or who is in charge of what? Because I think from the outside, it can seem like it's like just one cohesive unit, but maybe you all have specialties and you have folks who are not here with us today that you wanna shout out as well. And I'm gonna rotate it back to Collin if you'd like to take it up.
Sure. Yeah. So when it comes to the actual ownership structure, it is the four of us that are like kind of the main owners that started this up. This has been obviously with the creation of Riftbound and that coming over here to the States is kind of when we've really started up. So it is very much so still kind of in its infancy of us doing this for maybe 5 or 6 months now at this point. But as Alex has mentioned with his Rolodex, it just started with us, as well as one of our other friends named Daniel, who does some guide work for us, as well as is starting to actually quit his job and start working for us as well a little bit more as like a full-time position. So we're slowly starting to integrate more people into the fold as things grow, especially for us. Community has always been a big thing when it comes to all of our friends that we've met over the years. So the 5 of us were kind of the main ones that started from previous games. And then as the time has gone on, we've just kind of done the same thing that Alex mentioned, where we picked up a few players, some of which we kind of knew in passing that just so happened to move over this one. Cody, for example, was a big Flesh and Blood player that we've kind of known, and we're able to pick him up for the team. Then we have our most recent additions in both Min and Coco, who won one of the Charlie's 25Ks. They got 1 and top 4 that one, where they ended up playing in top 4. And then this most recent one, I traveled with them, and we got 2nd and top 4. So Min got back-to-back top 4s, and Coco got 1st and 2nd. So obviously quite the performance from them. John Rossum as well as like a long-term Magic player who won the 25K on the other side of the States on that weekend, who has become a pretty quick friend of the team. We met him at one of the first Pro Play Games summits, and just kind of talked to him. And, a lot of it is kind of like building a vibes thing as well. It's not just about being a good card game player, but making sure that we resonate on like the same level when it comes to being able to hang out and test together and being on the same mental wavelength when it comes to all that sort of stuff. And then we have our friend Trevor, who we met at the Atlanta 10K for Star City Games that realistically Alex and I should not have gone to, because it was a nonsense weekend where I think it was the same weekend as like some football game where there are like 40,000 people that flew in. The Peach Bowl, yeah, there it was. So
terrible decision.
Yeah, the hotel was super expensive that we ended up going. The flight was super expensive, but it was kind of in the middle of a bunch of content, and we wanted to keep playing in events, so we made the decision. But fortunately, we were able to pick up Trevor, who also top 64'd Houston on Kaisa. He's been a valuable asset to the team. And those are kind of our main players that people are used to seeing at this point. We have a couple of additional people who've supported us. Joe, for example, long-term friend that was one of Alex's old friends from, I believe, the Force of Will days. Is that right, Alex?
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. Joe's been on he's played pretty much every card game I've played since then.
Yeah, and he actually won the best of Rumble in Vegas, which was incredible for him. But he does a lot. He has like a real big boy job while also running a card shop, while also having a family with kids. So he doesn't really have the time to commit as much to this, right? Yeah, I see your reaction. We think the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got like a lot of kids too, like a lot of kids.
Yeah, I think he's got like 4 or 5 kids or something like that. So he obviously doesn't have the time to commit, but he's a friend of ours and he helps us out where he can. So we put a shirt on him and, help him out wherever he needs it. And obviously it did well for him since he was able to get the best of there. Then, a couple of other people that we associate as well. We've got Zane, one of our sponsors, creator of TopDeck.gg. He comes in and tests with us as well whenever he is able to play in these events. Incredible guy, incredible platform. I'm sure that's one of the things we'll be shouting out quite a lot. We love TopDeck.gg. I think it's the best tournament software in the world, and would love to see more websites using it. And yeah, that should be the majority of people that people know. We also have Nick on our team, who he ended up getting, I think, the second place Garen in Vegas, but that's Alex's brother, who's also been playing card games with us a long time. And he hangs out with us, but again, he's also very busy, so he hasn't spent a ton of time testing like the rest of everyone else. So then a couple of other people here or there, but that covers the majority of our team right now.
This is like a really sizable testing squad, even I think by like my knowledge of Magic testing houses where people get together and like effectively cohabitate physically to do what you guys are doing digitally. It's a lot of people, and especially it sounds like you're picking up people who are having like consistent success, and also who are like a match for like the vibe of the team, which seems completely sensical. I guess that leads me to a question about like the other creators or other competitors in the community. I've like, full disclosure for the people, I'm like on the Discord now, so I do get to see that there are like a bunch of other people who are not part of Challenger TCG. And I guess my question is like, do you guys also test or like talk theory with other creators or other competitors who are going to like events in China or events in the US, whether they're Riot official or the CCS or PPG events? And I'll give Antyn a chance to chime in a little bit.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, we definitely do theory craft and talk with other people in the scene. I mean, I think that that's always, just like Alex said earlier, like when me and him were playing Force of Will, we were on separate teams. We were pretty much on like the two only real major teams throughout the entire time that we were playing. We were just on opposite teams, but we would still test together because I recognized that Alex is a very good player, but also Alex just has the same kind of grind set that I did, especially back then, where it was just like I couldn't really find anyone else that was just going to sit down and jam with me like 8 hours a day. So I would say we test with a lot. We collaborate with George and we talk with him. Collin has gone out and tested George G. For those who are unaware. We had Diwali, the regional champion. He came into our stream and did a showcase match with Collin to kind of like teach people about Draven mirrors. I've talked to we have Sold Out in there. Basically the guy who originally popularized the Annie deck in set 1. He's in there posting about Annie, and we've collaborated with him a little bit. So yeah, I would say we test mostly internally, but we're not opposed to like testing externally and theory crafting and bouncing ideas off of other people, because it's always good to just hear different perspectives.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Rolodex is big. That's basically like the metaphor that I think is gonna stick for today.
Yeah.
The other question that I had is one of the things that you guys have put forward, I think, both on the Metafy and during your videos, is content production route guides, which take a lot of time to test for and to write and to like proof. And my question was, how does that work happen? Because I'm somebody who writes a lot, so I tend to think about like writing process if it's collaborative. Do you assign specific decks to specific people? Is it all collective? I'm just curious about the process, and I guess I can ask Alex because I know there's like a Rek'Sai situation in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of it is kind of like, okay, and it's a little bit more refined now than it was in the past, because we're kind of, when we first started, it was just like, oh, I like this thing, we should write a guide for it because it's a popular leader. Now it's like, I can tell you our set 3 processes like this. We've selected 6 legends to write guides for set 3. And we're kind of divvying them up. It's like 2 for me, 2 for Collin, 1 for Antyn, and then I think maybe 1 for Daniel. And then we're taking those guides to begin with. And then anything that's left, the team is more than willing to write guides on that we'll host on our platform. The guides are relatively a solo effort. However, the team usually assists with the matchup parts. So for the matchup parts, like right now, for example, I'm just putting the finishing touches on my Jax guide. I still have to record VODs for the Kaiser matchup, for example. So I'll probably ask one of our teammates, say, hey guys, we just need like 3 games versus Kaiser or whatever. We'll sit down, we'll record that. I'll pretty much do the voiceover as we're playing. They'll just remain silent for the most part. And we'll kind of do it like that. So they assist in the matchups. Or like, if I need to learn a matchup, I might go, hey, I need to learn the Aurora matchup. Antyn, you obviously play Aurora the most of anyone on our team. Can you get in here and play some Aurora games against me just so I can kind of understand this matchup? But outside of that, they're mostly a solo effort. We do obviously proofread each other's guides and stuff, but the process of that is usually pretty much on our own. Guides usually take somewhere between, I don't know, let's say 20 to 30 hours to write, depending on how long it is, what the contents are. I know, for example, Collin's Double Draven guide took well over maybe twice that, maybe 50 to 60 hours, where something like my Rek'Sai guide was probably right around 25 hours of just like writing. When you factor in the time it takes to test, though, it's much, much more than that, of course. So yeah, I think we've got a pretty good idea of how we do the guides, and I think not forcing anybody to take a specific guide is very good too, because like the Rek'Sai, that's like a C tier deck or whatever, but I really like the deck, so I wanted to write a guide about it, and it did very well too. The kind of the passion for it, whereas like if I just said, Antyn, write this Rek'Sai guide, he's going to be like, well, I hate this deck, and the guide's going to reflect on that. So I think it's really important that we be able to choose the guides ourselves, choose things that fit our play styles, choose decks that we like to write about. And I think that that's really helped our process a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely is a very hands-on approach. One thing I wanted to add is that, especially as we're going into set 3, we're going to have a few guides that are going to be coming out even before the set actually releases. And a lot of people worry about like if this content is rushed or if it's going to be of high quality. But even on top of what Alex said when it came to the initial writing process of these guides and how many hours it took, we're also doing additional updates on all these guides as well as the meta develops. You know, even beyond the 60 plus hours that I had to put into my Draven guide to initially write it, I've also had to go back and completely rewrite all the matchups. Anytime that the deck list changes, I got to go back and rewrite into that as well. So it really does become like a full experience. And even beyond that, while we're doing these early testings, it's not like we're just putting it out with no ideas and no testing. All of us are fortunate enough to be able to do this full time. So we're just in our Discord pretty much nonstop, grinding games, testing whatever our theories are in order to make sure that when we're writing a guide, it's on what we truly believe is the best version of this deck, so that the people that want to play whatever their new champion is, whatever their favorite league champion is, that they have the best possible version of that list, and making sure that we can get it updated in time for all the events that are going on as well has definitely been one of our priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to just jump in real quick to add just my 2 cents, because I do think that a lot of people don't really understand. Like they'll just see someone write a guide and they're just like, oh well, you just typed a bunch of words, but like they don't really understand how much testing goes into it before we're actually typing. Like before we're putting any pen to paper, like we are grinding hundreds of games, and so like that in itself takes a large amount of time. And once the refinement process and everything else that continues, it is a labor of love for sure. It's a lot of work that goes into these things.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, we're trying to kind of go a little bit more so than just being like, in this position, you should always be playing this card or something like that. We want to explain to people why that's the case so that they can get their own understanding. Going back to our 60 plus years of card game experience, I want a new player who's willing to support us and buy these guides to understand our thought process and understand what it is as to why it is, more so than it is just, oh, you should always do this in this position. It's important to get that real knowledge as to why you're making these decisions and how that improves your win rate and all that sort of stuff. And that's really what we're trying to focus on.
Yeah, this makes a ton of sense to me. I often get questions on the channel that are like, what is the best X? And the answer is often like, it's super contingent on a ton of testing, matches, contextual knowledge, which will take me like more time than you can fit in like 20 minutes to talk to somebody, or like a one sentence recommendation. So I can only imagine when you're doing that for competitive decks, and especially if you're trying to figure out the best list for a specific period of time, that the amount of testing gets pretty wild. I tend to recommend to people like 100 reps on a deck before you even start like feeling comfortable, which a lot of people have told me is crazy, but I have a feeling yours are much higher than that.
Oh
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I mean, this kind of segues us into another question that I had for you, which is you all have like a long history with card games, but Challenger TCG asks some things of you, right? It's a professional enterprise, and it's also like a competitive sport at the same time. So I guess the question is, has being part of Challenger TCG or swapping it into this more like content production focused period over the last year changed how you interact with card games? And Alex, I'll let you take up the mantle.
A little bit. So I've kind of done this for a very long time, and granted, the teams I was on were a little less formal than this, but kind of like being the centerpiece, kind of being the guy that usually like the center of the thread and needle board, if you will. That guy who kind of knows everyone. It's been like, not to say that I have been like leading the charge, so to speak, but I am like the familiar piece for a lot of people, so it does put me in a role sometimes. Not so much with Challenger, but in the past, where like, oh, if someone has like an issue or someone wants to like say something, they might communicate through me as opposed to one of the other people who they're just getting to learn it over at the time. And over time, we've all gotten to know each other. A lot of these people know each other better. So like Collin and Antyn didn't meet each other until maybe 3 years ago. That was in Battle Spirit Saga. So at the time they'd never met each other. Now they've known each other for a couple of years, and as people kind of get more acclimated to the team, they kind of get to know each other, and that's kind of my goal too. Is that I want people to get to know each other better. The way I've approached the team, it's kind of nice. One thing I did feel in previous teams is that because I knew everybody, people would rely on me to make decisions, and I don't always want to be the person making decisions. I want it to be more relaxed, especially if there's some sort of drama, which lucky for us, there really hasn't been up to this point. But it's nice that the way I approach things now is I have business partners whom I can rely on to make decisions with me. People, so we're kind of more unified as a team. We have a more formal setting in the way we make decisions. As before, it was kind of just like, all right, everybody, we're testing tonight. Everybody, get on and come play or whatever. Like, all right, everybody, like these are kind of the decks, just like very informal settings. So the way I've approached doing teams, it's a lot more formal now. The way I interact with people is before it was kind of just networking for myself. Now it's networking for the team. Before it was kind of just like more, like I said, a little more laid back in the way that I would interact with people. But now I understand that I represent a brand. There's a lot more professionalism that comes with that. And when interacting too, trying to think about how I can further the brand when I'm interacting with other people, and just kind of how that reflects on us as a team.
Anyone else have personal
Yeah, I
perspectives
was gonna say, I think like one of the, probably for Alex, one of the things that I would imagine changed a lot for him is like you're usually just grinding like a couple decks, whereas like now that you're writing guides, you have to grind decks that you might not otherwise have put as many reps into, right?
Yeah, that as well. That's changed. I still try to keep my sphere relatively small. It does help to be kind of a jack of all trades in some regard because, like I was saying before, okay, I want to play Aurora. Antyn plays the most Aurora. I need to test this. I play against Antyn, but what if Antyn's not around? Well, now I have to find someone else to play, and that kind of works the opposite too. Where if Collin needs to test against Aurora and Antyn's not around, he has to go, okay, Alex, I need you to play Aurora, and when I test against him, when he needs good reps, maybe I'm not as good as Antyn is with Aurora, but I can't be like the guy at the first round of your locals. I kind of have to know have some familiarity with the deck I'm playing, and I have to be able to give Collin at least a run for his money when he's testing this. Otherwise, the testing is just ineffective. And I think that's something that we try to do with the team as a whole, even if people have their specialty decks, is kind of cross train people so that they can at least play other decks or decks that we might have in our purview to at least a reasonable level where we feel like the reps that we're getting, if they have to play that deck, are they're not wasted. They're worthwhile reps.
Yeah. And I think that's something that just came from the experience that we've had, that, it's very easy for us to pick up a deck and immediately understand what its main strategy is and at least play it to a comparable enough level. A lot of us just kind of fundamentally understand decks. For example, when I played Miracle for Vegas, I had sub 10 games going into that event played on Miracle, and I was still able to get top 4 out of 1,700 people, just given that I fundamentally understood how the deck worked. I played against the deck a lot. Daniel, as we mentioned, was kind of our main Miracle guy for a while. I guess he ended up playing Miracle Jinx at both events, and it kind of helps in this game that everyone is able to play and focus on something different, with the medal leaders being like the main prize card outside of just topping an event. It's more built around like people can have their specialties, whenever a new set drops. Previously, there was, in the games that we played, there wasn't really an incentive for you to play one leader over another. It was just whoever won the tournament, and that was it. There's no real best of prizing in the majority of card games that exist. This game works a little bit differently, and that's why we've kind of been more on the plan of, people have their specialties and they have their pet decks that they really enjoy playing, and they can stick with that, because even if it is a bad deck, objectively speaking, in the current meta it's Draven, Aurelia, or nothing, and there is plenty of incentive for everyone on our team to have their specific pet decks that they can run with for a while, which I think is definitely a boon that Riftbound has.
Yeah, I would say for me, like as a competitive player, the thing that's changed for me the most is just the scheduling of like you said, we're also a content producing organization. So like, given that I handle the majority of like the editing, I'm also our graphic designer. Like there's just a lot of additional tasks that get put on my plate throughout the week. And I also, on top of having to, make sure that I'm producing things and putting out content every week, because so far we've been basically dropping at least one video every single week since the game came out, as well as we've put out some free articles and guides, and then we also are putting out guides. So like I said, I also help put out guides. I usually just put out about one or so during a set, because I'm busy working on a lot of the other content that we put out, most of the free and educational content we put out. So yeah, having to juggle that along with testing myself, testing for the guide, as well as testing whatever decks I actually want to compete with, has been new for me. But I mean, I feel like so far I've been pretty fortunate, of course, since this is my full-time job and I am a grinder naturally. Like I said, I am the kind of guy that can just sit down and play 8 hours straight and without batting an eye. Like I've been able to manage my time pretty well and use it effectively, but it's definitely a lot different than when I just had to, only focus on playing the game.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like an amazing, like, rise to fame, I guess, or like, I suppose from the outside it might look like it's pretty fast, but hearing you guys talk about it with how you've built the team over the years, it's actually much more slow and methodical. So the results speak for the process, I think. We kind of dipped into like the next section of questions that I had on the menu, which was really about like competitive play. And we talked a little bit about testing specific decks and pet decks. So I wanted to ask you, how do you go about choosing the decks that you want to play? I say this because I think the way that I found out about you all was Collin's set deck, which I had a great time in set 1 until Annie started popping off, but then I swapped off of it. So yeah, the question I would have is like, do you play the decks that are mathematically the most winning? Do you play decks that you have personal enjoyment of? Like, what's the balance that you've all struck on this? And I'll start with Collin, since I mentioned Set.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is something that I feel like I could talk about for hours on its own, as it is like a very complex thing. But it just kind of depends upon where the game is at. Starting with set one, I thought that metagame was a little bit wide open and had a couple of prime holes that I could fill, where the biggest thing was getting to like 7 might into Kaisa was quite nice because their biggest thing was like Falling Star in order to kill your units. And at the time, we had realized that Kaisa was by far and away the best deck. And whenever you approach a metagame, there are typically two ways to go at it. If you're expecting a bunch of this one deck and that's the one deck, that's the deck to beat, you either have to play that deck or you have to play something that beats that deck, right? And at the time, we didn't really find anything that consistently beat Kaisa. Aurora did okay, but it was just kind of an inconsistent deck and isn't my personal play style. But I just kind of took that style and I was like, okay, well, I kind of reverse engineered it in order to come up with the set deck, which was what does Kaisa struggle into? And it's like Big Might and Zonia's Hourglass were like the two things that we saw as going into the Aurora and like the Big E decks. The things that really hurt her was when you would just like use a Zonia's to save your Big Dead Bloom and then it would just come back, right? So that's when, while I was looking around, I came up with the set deck. Obviously, it performed very well. And the other benefit is, well, I don't think that deck is nearly as good as Kaisa was in set one. You get the rogue element where people don't entirely understand what it is that you're doing, right? In the first event, I can't count the amount of mistakes that were made against me. No fault to the players that I played against. I still played against plenty of good players. George G was one of my opponents who I was able to take down in that event. As we previously mentioned, who's had a lot of success in this game. But he just, I was playing a rogue deck. He didn't know exactly what my game strategy was, and I was able to really capitalize on that. So in those specific situations, you can turn like a B tier deck into potentially the best deck for that event because nobody knows what you're doing, right? And I was able to have decent success with the deck outside of the first event that I was able to win in that one. I think I got top 4 at a couple of other events, both the Charlies and the PPG also on my set list. But yeah, that's where it kind of was in set one. And then set two, our approach was a little bit different, where we very quickly realized that of the best 2 decks, there wasn't really playing something to beat the best deck. I ended up playing Midrange Draven in Italy, which was kind of a mistake of mine that I still kind of regret to this day, where I just didn't get enough reps on the Miracle deck. I tested a lot into it. Honestly, I played maybe 5 or 6 games with it. I didn't open with my Ezreal plus Seal, and I just wrote it off. I was like, oh, this deck's inconsistent. I don't like inconsistent decks. I want to have as many chances to outplay my opponent as possible. So after that, I just played Midrange Draven, played a bunch in the Miracle deck, and I felt that the matchup was good enough that I didn't really look much beyond that. And then once we got into the tournament setting and how these tournaments are structured, we knew going into Italy that the Miracle Draven deck was better into the field as a whole, but it had its weaknesses and like its inconsistencies, and that's why I chose to play Midrange Draven instead. But then I ended up losing to, I lost to a Miracle deck who just got the absolute nuts, and I had no chance. I lost to a Aurora Volley Bear deck just because they out-nut drew me, and I realized very quickly that I was like, okay, I need something that's a little bit more powerful in order to get through these absurd events. And that's how I ended up swapping to Miracle Draven, which obviously did very well for me at Vegas, going all the way to top 4, even with very limited testing, and then did well at the PPG as well, only really losing to my teammates, or not PPG, sorry, the Charlie's event afterwards, only losing to my teammates. So it becomes like a lot of different things just based on the metagame. I'm typically the type of player that will want to play something that beats the best deck, but the way this game works, even when Draven is by far and away the stats that deck has is absurd compared to any other card game. It still only has like a 15 to 20% representation in the event. So for me, I am very much so competitive. I want to win the event over everything. So that's why I'm always going to be the type of player that just plays the best deck. But there are also people on our team who we support who want to play the metal legends and stuff like that, and they want to go for best ofs because that is where the majority of the pricing is, and we do still think that there's a lot of merit to that. So that's something that we support as well. And as we mentioned previously, we all have our deck specialists. So when people were wanting to play in a mid-range Draven at the time, they'd come to me. When people wanted to play against Aurora, they go to Antyn. If they wanted to play against Rek'Sai, they'd go to Alex. And we kind of built this sort of testing group where everyone was able to test against the best things and all that. But as somebody who played a couple of different metal leaders and had some success with it, even winning the best of I think Antyn's probably a little bit better to talk on that specific aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, my play style is I'm not gonna say I'm quite like Collin. I will definitely sometimes just be contrarian and try to play something that's different than the meta. That's just how I've always been since Alex met me in Force So Well. Like Alex will always tell everyone that the GP we met at was top 8 was all the same deck, but I was the only person in that top 8 that was technically playing a different leader, even though it was the same. It was all mono red, and everyone was basically on the same deck. But my deck was actually playing a different leader than everybody else, and I did have a few other inclusions. So like even during that tier 0 format, which I could not deny that I had to play basically the same deck as everybody else, I still tried to play a slightly different version, and that edge that Collin mentioned is a big reason for that too. I'm not gonna say I I downplay my playability a lot, and I do think that I'm a very good pilot. But I think that my strongest strength in card games has always been my ability to build, and then also like not only to build really good decks, but to build like off meta decks and learn them really well, so that like if I'm familiar with my play patterns and you're not, that gives me a very good edge. And since my deck is good, it's not a bad deck by any means because it's built by me. Um, then I usually get a lot of edge there. In like the Force of Will game, for instance, that me and Alex played, I top aided almost every event I ever went to, and I was like, I think I only ever had to play like the conform to the meta like one time. Otherwise, I was always playing some like 5 or 6 color nonsense. No one knew what I was doing, but I was still winning events. Um, and in this game as well, like Aurora, I identified really early on was really good into Kaisa. It was pretty good into a lot of the other things too. I mean, it was just Aurora is just an unfair card, but I didn't really like the inconsistency, especially in set 1. That like I thought Misfortune was a better Aurora deck when it had Aurora, but like it was very inconsistent in always hitting that, even with the stack decks and everything. So I felt that that deck didn't really have a good game plan. I know that it was playable. You could still play out of some non-Aurora games, but it just felt like your win rate was so low. So I couldn't really justify playing like that kind of a deck. Same thing with Volibear, even though that was like the first champion I really put a lot of reps on was Volibear. I just couldn't really justify because of the inconsistency playing that deck. But Yi gave me kind of the good middle ground of like, okay, well this deck is a real deck even without Aurora. Like I'm still just basically playing ramp Yi, and that was still already a playable deck. It's just that I'm cutting all these 2-drops out so that everything I draw other than my ramp spells, of course, which all cycle themselves, is gas. So like I really liked that playstyle a lot, and I felt like a lot of people were underprepared for the deck. They hadn't really tested into it. And coming into Vegas, I felt the same way. I played MF Aurora in Bologna, which I did feel like was a strong deck, but I literally just hit the insane low rolls, the most crazy low rolls you can imagine, like double called shot, stack deck, all this stuff, and still not seeing a single Aurora like in multiple games. And I ended up starting out really strong but losing. And so going into Vegas, I wanted to play something that again I feel really comfortable on. I don't think anybody's got more reps on Aurora Yi than I do. And I did feel going into that event, I felt like I was not actually going to be playing for like top. I didn't think I was playing for top 8. Like maybe if we were cutting to top 64, I would see myself having a good shot, but I did not think I was going to be in contention for top 8. But it turned out that the deck that I brought was good. Again, the edge I have of like not a lot of people were expecting it was also working out in my favor. Every single person in the format right now is playing Obelisk, which is really good for Auroras because you're just getting a free Obelisk game that your opponent is giving to you, which is very nice of you all. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, I was live for Top Cut actually all the way until I played in Houston and in this event. Every time I'm X1 and I'm playing my winning in, I get thrown on stream and get dumpstered for some reason. 2-0. It's been 2-0 every time too. So so brutal. But one of these days I'll join Collin in top 8.
You'll have to break the
But yeah,
the curse.
gotta
sometime.
break the stream curse. Yeah, one of
For
these
sure.
days.
Yeah. How about you, Alex? How do you approach? Do you choose the winning decks or personal favorites?
Kind of just falls in my lap a lot of the times. It's just like kind of like I'm usually pretty good at meta calls. Like that's usually something that I've been pretty good at. This game's been kind of a nightmare for me because of the metal cards. So it's like pretty impossible to like, you have a general sense that like, okay, yeah, Rally and Draven are going to be the most played decks, but I've always been really good at making meta calls. And it's not as great here anymore. Usually, I mean, I don't know, like if I can play the same deck over and over again, I will. But typically it's kind of just like I don't really have like a really refined process like that. Like usually I just find a deck that I like and I play it. Like sometimes that's the best deck, sometimes it's something that's not necessarily the best deck. I haven't found anything yet in Riftbound that really calls to me, to be honest. Like there's just like no decks that I've really like kind of attached myself to. Like Rek'Sai was one of them, but I recognize this deck is not really powerful enough to for where I want to be playing this deck at every single event. And it's a good meta leader deck, I think, but I don't think it's a very good deck overall. So for me, it just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to say. I go through different phases depending on the games. The game I just played was Star Wars Unlimited. I played literally the same deck for a year and a half straight, and I never switched. And I saw a lot of success that way. Battle Spirit, same thing. I played pretty much the same deck until like the very last set, but then I played a whole bunch of different decks. And Force of Will, where me and Antyn met, I probably played a different deck at literally every single event. I don't think I ever played, unless it was like a tier 0 format or like there was a one deck format, I rarely ever played the same deck twice. So it's kind of just how I'm feeling at the time. I don't have a specific process. I'm not a real deck builder guy. I kind of just let the other people do that, and I just tune the stuff that I like. And right now, I've been playing a lot of Jax because I like the deck a lot. But yeah, it's I don't know. I don't have like a very specific process in terms of how I choose a deck. I'm more of just kind of a guy that plays a lot. Like I grind a ton, and just when I find a deck that I think is good, I kind of usually stick to it and just grind that deck out until I until I can't grind it anymore, pretty much. So
It's an interesting like diversity of viewpoints because all of you seem to be approaching like ostensibly the same game and like at a very high level, but in radically different ways. Even though you're all part of the same team, which I think is super cool, and it leads to a lot of success so far. I guess one of the questions that I did have for you all is, so we've been talking a lot about like choosing best decks or like approaches to coming into Bologna or Vegas or any of these like the CCS or PPG events, but that's really like at a more individual level. So like what do you like to play? What do you think is more winning? Do you find that running or like going to these events as a team, I think like all of you at Bologna or I think Collin, you were at the same event. Were you at the same event with Coco and Min for the CCS, or am I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were.
Do you like? Does that change how you play? Do you like take friendly fire into consideration? Friendly fire for those watching being when you get trapped playing against a teammate for stakes. Does that change how you approach the game? And I guess I called you out, Collin, so I'll let you start.
Yeah, I'm probably the best person to talk about it given what happened at CCS. But it is definitely something that comes up in tournament and out of tournament. Typically a common thing, and it is within, as far as I know, at least the last I checked, within the rules of Riftbound, is you're allowed to do a prize split with people throughout the tournament. The only caveat is that it has to be 50-50, which obviously we always do when it comes to these sorts of things. So part of the dynamic of being on a team is being able to support each other throughout the run, and it really does help to not only like, I guess it really sucks when you end up playing teammates in tournament, which is what happened to me. I played against both Min and Coco, which were the two people that I ended up going with, and having to concede to them just given what was right for the tournament, and obviously they were able to succeed doing so. So that was a great part of it. But that's just kind of the nature of how these things go when it comes to a lot of this sort of stuff. But what really matters, I think, is and something that people don't really talk nearly enough about when it comes to all these tournaments is just having like that support group while you're going through it as well. I think really helps where you end up finishing your round, and whether it was a bad beat story that you have or a really good round where you're able to outplay your opponent and being able to go over to your team and discuss it, I think really does help quite a bit, especially in some of these longer events. Like Vegas day one was like 14 hours or something like that, 15 hours, and just kind of being able to have that commiseration, I guess, with a group of good guys to talk through all your experiences. If you ever like feeling uncertain about a certain thing, you can talk it through to make sure that you understand going into future rounds and such, what to do, and those sorts of things really does help. And obviously when playing against teammates, there's always the bragging rights, when it comes to all these sorts of things of being able to joke around. And I think it really just, yeah, I guess for me, it adds a lot to the fun experience involved with all these sorts of things. Is like, while this is a business for us, it is also just a hobby. It's a hobby that turned into a business. So we still want to have those fun moments where we can joke around with each other, and we at the end of the day we all have each other's back. And I think that's the most important thing about being on a team, is understanding that like we're always gonna do what's right for our team members, and put each other first. So yeah, I think that's part of our philosophy when it comes to these tournament days, and what we'll always stick by.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
know for me, like I know they mentioned Battle Spirits earlier, which is where I met Collin. Like, I honestly didn't really like that game very much. It kind of drove me up a wall. But I literally could not stop playing just because I enjoyed hanging out with the guys so much. Like, if Collin and Alex basically like made Battle Spirits playable for me, like just having the team and like actually like playing with the gang, like it. And there was so much money to be won in that game. Like, it was definitely silly to walk away from, which I didn't. But yeah, I I definitely would not have probably played that game at all if it wasn't for my teammates. So yeah, I think it's really great to like just be able to hang out with your friends and do something that you love together. It makes it a lot better. I know when I was playing One Piece, none of these guys really went and played One Piece with me. I was doing that kind of solo, and I did go to some regionals and stuff, and I made friends. I'm a pretty sociable guy. I'll make friends wherever I go, but it definitely isn't the same as just like traveling with people who you've known for a long time and you all just gel really well together. It just makes the whole experience much better.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, right? Because I think a lot of people go into these games either from the perspective of being casual players and wanting to play with friends, which is less amenable to like competitive play necessarily, or there are hardcore competitors who are incredibly cutthroat and therefore are not like team players necessarily. So I always find competitive teams to be like a fascinating hybrid of the two perspectives, which is like sociability and also being super competitive. I have a couple more questions about the like tournament or competitive play aspect, and then we'll move on to a couple questions about the state of the game. But I'm not going
Sure.
to make anybody repeat ban list predictions because I feel like
Sure.
that's been the last month of
Been beaten to
this.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about CCS, PPG, regional qualifiers. You guys just had a ungodly long, like double 12-hour stream of the Shenzhen National Open. So I wanted to ask you if you have a preference right now for any of the events that are around, including things like Nexus Nights and skirmishes, or ones that you dislike in particular for any reason. And I'll pass it over to Alex.
So I don't go to locals. I pretty much have not for close to 15 years now. I'm just not a real locals guy. As sociable as I am, I'm just not a big locals guy. I also live in the absolute middle of nowhere now, so getting to locals takes me forever. But that's only been the past year or so. I don't go to skirmishes much because, unfortunately for me, I live in New Hampshire, and there's not like a really huge. There is a TCG scene here, but it's not very big. Massachusetts has a pretty big one, but again, that's still like some ways away. It takes me just to get to like a populated part of Massachusetts takes me like an hour and a half. So for me, I don't do the skirmishes much. I don't get the opportunity to do that. The nearest LGS to me is 45 minutes away. That's the nearest one, not just like where they are, just 45 minutes to get to any single one. Um, I really enjoy pretty much any event that all my friends are going to. I don't have a particular preference. It doesn't have to be CCS. It doesn't have to be SCG. I'm actually more of a locations guy, to be honest. I have some locations in my mind that I really like, and some locations that I really don't like. A great example is I'm a big food guy, as you can probably tell by the size of me. So I really associate places with how good of an experience did I have there and how good is the food there. So for example, and I apologize to anybody in the UK, but I absolutely hate the food in the UK. I apologize in advance, but I do not like the food there. I did my first time in the UK was for Forcible in 2015. It was Birmingham. So now I've doubled down on how much I don't like the UK. For those of you who've been to Birmingham, it is an awful city, and even the people that live there will say it's awful. But I have had good experiences too. I went to Glasgow, excellent city, had a blast there, and then places like LA, love LA. The food there is awesome. Plenty of places to go out, eat, do things. Whereas like Atlanta, the last 2 times I've been there, I've had a terrible experience. Collin kind of touched on that a little bit. So for me, it's more about who's with me and where I am than it is the actual event. Like I couldn't. We could be at a 10K, a 25K, a regional, a SCG with 50 players. That doesn't matter as long as I'm at a nice location and I'm with my friends. That's what matters to me personally.
I relate and deeply regret missing out on Bologna tickets for that reason, because I would have loved to be in Italy instead of the freezing Canadian winter. Collin, any personal preferences between event types or locations?
Yeah, I mean, so far it's kind of been a different thing for all these events, just given that the way Riot seems to have been doing it so far is they have a different tournament organizer for all these different events, and we've had, I guess, only the 3 right now, but I will say that the Vegas one seemed to be the most well run by far. So shout out to Pro Play Games and Machado for running a pretty good event there. Outside of that, I definitely have a preference towards the PPG Summits and Charlie's, specifically just given that their tournament software that they choose to use is much better than the other options that have been available. Shout out to TopDeck.gg as always. I promise I'm not just sponsored by them. I truly believe in their product, and that's something that we will only ever take sponsorships from things that we support. So at a local level, I do come out to skirmishes occasionally. I'm in San Antonio, so there's a ton of game stores out here, and pretty much a skirmish any weekend that I'm not flying out and traveling. But outside of that, I'm going to every event that exists, just because it is part of the brand, and at least historically, I've been able to make enough money off of my tournament winnings in order to make it worth it for me to go to every event that I can, right? So I'm going to every big event that exists. If it's probably more than a 10K, then you'll see me there. And especially all the official events, obviously, I'll be there as well. At a local level, I would like to see skirmishes change a little bit. from what I've been hearing from my local scene, people seem to care more about going to Nexus nights more so than they do skirmishes, just because they get their packs or what have you. They can have some cool alt arts, and that's what people seem to really care about. For me, I obviously prefer going to the skirmishes just because I need the buys for the events. But the majority of players don't really seem to care too much about those, especially given how difficult it is to get into all of these events. So I think Riot's got the right idea, but when it comes to a lot of this stuff, they're still very, very new. This is their first time running a paper card game or doing anything in person, as opposed to all their previous games that have been digital. So they're still figuring out a lot of the little things, and I think they're receptive to the feedback that they've been getting and are going to continue working on changing this. And I think it's one of those things where we just got to give them a little bit of time to change up the promos a little bit more so that we can start getting some alternate arts. And yeah, go forward from there. So
Yeah, for me, I don't like, just again going back to the time thing earlier. Now being content creators and competitive players and full timers, there's just a lot of time that I just don't really feel like I have the time to dedicate to locals as much as I used to. I definitely am a lover of going to my locals if I can, but just with the time, like skirmishes, I will go to, like, because just like Collin said, I need buys for the regionals. I've definitely gotten a good amount of skirmish wins racked up now that I should have buys for the next few. But yeah, like I do wish skirmishes were better. I know that like going to these events, I can see that the turnouts are lower than Nexus nights, and I feel like the turnouts are just have gone down. I think the first few skirmishes I went to when the game was newer, I saw more people going, but it does seem like the turnouts have just gone downhill. I do think part of that's because the promos are not very appealing. They just like basically are giving out cards that look just like cards we can pull in the booster packs. They're also not like very meta cards like Blitzcrank and Tryndamere. Like they're not even very good cards. Not things that you would want to pull out of a booster pack to begin with. So um, I do think that's part of it. I do think if you had made it Blitzcrank and Tryndamere, but they were like alternate arts, they had like different skins or something. I think that just that simple change would probably make the events more appealing, because you now can get this exclusive thing that you can only get by playing in these specific events. And some people could argue on both sides that like, oh well, that desirability like brings in the wrong crowd, people who just are trying to come grab these things because there's money. But like, honestly, these skirmishes aren't even filling up. So if we can get them to start filling up, I feel like that's a better place for the game to be. And the players who are actually good at the game should be able to beat all these prize hunters who don't know anything about card games anyway. Um, but yeah, we're focused on going to events that are streamed because that's good promotion for the brand. Like Collin mentioned earlier, like SCG, outside of the fact that they don't use Top Deck, which is a big mistake. They also don't stream their events. Like we've only had one SCG that was streamed, and that's because the Turn'em Sideways crew did the stream. But other than that, like the Star City Games events get no coverage. So even if we go win one of these, it's cool, and maybe we'll get like a post on Twitter that gets a little bit of traction, but like nope, most players won't even know we won it because there's no, it's the whole, if a forest falls in the tree, does it really make a sound? Like it's the same concept. So for us, we prioritize obviously any major Riot event we will be at, because those are the ones we want to be winning. But any scene with any event with a stream, we'll consider going to if it's good, because if it's good coverage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a thing to like ask more of, or at least to showcase how like much audience the co-streams have brought in internationally, and also like there's demand for these events to be streamed. And on the skirmish end, as somebody who just lived through an 8-man untimed Swiss skirmish, please get more players in, because I don't want to get stuck watching a 95-minute Victor Mirror again, or I will leave
Yeah.
the venue.
Yeah, that sounds
So
crazy.
yeah, I think this is a good time to take a small break, and we'll be back with the viewers to talk about state of the game stuff. All right, welcome back, everybody. After a short break from all of us, but probably like 0 seconds for all of you on the stream. We've gone through a lot of discussion today about how Challenger TCG is structured as a team, how everybody got to know each other, a lot of the navigating competitive events, and obviously I know that a lot of people have interest in the state of the game, and especially like how set 2 is going right now, and how it went in set 1. So I wanted to give the interviewees a chance to talk about how they feel about the game in its current iteration, relative to like a lot of the other games that they played, or even just to like set 1 to set 2, without talking about bans necessarily, because I know that exists. And if you would like to hear some of that discussion, just go check out the Challenger TCG live streams. There's like a bunch of them that were about that. I think Alex had an episode that was like a full thing. So yeah, I'm gonna start with you, Collin. What do you think are, at this moment in time, some of the obstacles and opportunities that Riftbound has as like a game, or like a game design system, if you want to think about it that way?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just I don't want to sound rude, but like general inexperience when it comes to a physical space and how much work really goes into developing these card games at like a fundamentally competitive level. I know that, as I've mentioned a couple of times in this interview already, that Riot is very used to digital products where if they ever make like an oopsie, it's very quick for them to just revert a couple of numbers here or there and nerf something into oblivion, right? Even in their previous card game of Legends of Runeterra, that was a thing that they're very easily able to do, where if you just mess something up in the testing process, then it's not a big deal, right? And when it comes to physical card games, really the only option that you have is to ban a card, and if you make something that is a little bit too egregious, a little bit too good. And I think that's just something that they need to change their philosophy on when it comes to these physical card games, is more about making things a little bit more stable, as opposed to recently or with the first couple of sets, they've kind of just printed a bunch of cards that are way too strong. And I think their design philosophy into it was going into a high power level game, but something like that is very difficult to balance. And I think a lot of it is just based on, at least from what I've heard through the grapevine, that this game originally wasn't even supposed to come out in the US. It was just one of those things that like the reception was just so high for people wanting a League of Legends card game, that originally was just supposed to be made for China as like a for fun thing. And then they tried to adapt the same game system and rules and cards that they designed as originally just a for fun game over in China that they'd never thought would be this big, into like this big thing that it is now, as one of the big pillars of card games. I think that sort of thing takes a lot more change, and it's a very difficult thing to do than a lot of people are giving them credit for. So from our perspective, whenever we make, I don't even want to say complaints, but when we make suggestions, a lot of that is just coming from our years of experience in card games and seeing how a lot of this stuff plays out, and wanting this game to be healthy and succeed, especially at a local level, because I know, as somebody who ran a game store for 6 years, that games truly succeed when they have like a good local attendance. These big events are great and they'll get some people into the game, but if somebody doesn't have the ability to play this at a local level because none of their skirmishes or their Nexus Knights are firing, because people don't want to play against Draven or Aurelia, that's the real problem that really surfaces. So a lot of these problematic cards as well, for me personally, revolve around like the play experience of these casual players at like a local level and what is fun for them, right? Because I'm inherently a competitive player. If there's no bans, I'm going to continue playing. If they ban 100 cards, I'm going to continue playing, right? They don't need to cater to me personally. I'm going to continue playing the game however it ends up being. I'll just play whatever the best deck is at the time, right? But we as a brand especially want this game to succeed and do the best that it possibly can. So that's always our biggest concern, is just how people are receptive at the local level, and making sure that people want to go out to their Nexus Knights their whatever skirmishes, challenges, whatever it may be. And yeah, so, and my long-winded rant, I'd say that things are a little bit rough right now, but from everything that we've heard, just give them some time to work through it. And what really matters when it comes to these card games is not necessarily the mistakes that they make, because every card game in the history of forever has made some sort of mistake. It all comes down to what their reception is to said mistakes and how they handle it moving forward.
Yeah,
I think just to jump in a little bit, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just to jump in a little bit on the obstacles side of things, I do think that it's just really, really important for them, given that they decided to make a leader-based game. I think that they just need to understand that it's very different in the card game space when like you have an oppressive deck, but it's just like it's all stuff that's in hidden information. Whereas in leader, when you make a game where your leader is starting in play all the time, and your leader is like how you're defining the decks, right? Like even when they're showing us brackets and stuff, like we're seeing Draven, like we don't know what's in the deck, right? Like they could be completely different forms of Draven, but we're just seeing Draven versus Draven versus Draven versus Draven. I just think like when you decide to make a leader-based game as a designer and you make that choice, and you need to like just you need to balance your leaders a lot better. I think that that's just going to be an obstacle for them. I think it's really hard given that how many legends they decided to put out. Like that it was going to be a tough task to like make 12 or 16 different decks, all very balanced and viable to play all against each other. I think that that is a tall order for any designer. But like I just think it's a pretty bad look, of course, in the current state of things where you only really have a few. We have more legends than ever. We have double what we had from set one, and we have fewer decks in the format than ever. I think that that's just a bad look for a leader-based game. And if I'm a casual on the outside looking in, or a competitive player on the outside looking in, and I look at all the tables and they're all like the same, like two cards, the two leaders, I'm just like, oh, this game doesn't look very balanced at all. And so it's just something that I think like in Magic, if is it whatever is like, and White Weenie are the two best decks, like it's just I just don't think it comes off quite the same to the casuals as it does when it's like a leader, because like you're building specifically around that thing. I know like Dragon Ball Super took a big dive in popularity, and I think it could have been even bigger than it was if it wasn't for Mecha Frieza, which like really just like destroyed that game's local scene. At least for me, like my locals pretty much died because of Mecha Frieza, and I was playing Mecha Frieza. Like Collin said, I'm a competitive player. Like I'm gonna play the crazy deck, but like it just destroyed locals. Playing Force of Will, pretty much the two formats that I feel like the two things that destroyed Force of Will. Another leader based game was the event that me and Alex met each other at, where top 8 was literally, like we said, like pretty much all the same deck. And then later on there was this other leader called Reflect Refrain that came out, and basically like you could play like 20, even in the most, it was actually a very balanced format, because you could play like 8 or 10 or 12 different decks that were all viable, but they were all playable out of one leader, because in that game there was no color locking. And so like even though the game itself was actually very diverse, it didn't look that way because everybody's playing the same leader. So it's just something that they need to consider when building a leader game, I think, and hopefully it gets better. And I just that could be a color balance thing, because again, we are color locked in this game. That was a choice that they made as designers too. Not only are we a leader game, but we're a color locked leader game. So yeah, I just think that's one of the main obstacles for the game, is keeping that in check.
Alex, did you want to chime in as well?
I think it's for me, it's kind of a beaten subject. I feel like I've covered it all kind of in my rants, and I've been going out of my way kind of not to repeat myself on this subject. I'm sorry that it happened to be here, but I think most people who watch us know kind of where I stand on the current metagame, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. I feel like I'm getting down the path of being overly negative, so I'm going to reel myself in on this one and just say, if you want to know where I stand kind of with the things that Collin and Antyn have said, you can watch any of our lives. I probably in the last 3 of them that I'm on, I have at least a good rant on the subject a couple times. So I think that's but I'm positive for the future. That's the sentiment that I want to echo here. I don't want to come off overly negative. So I'm positive for the future.
That is always our big thing that I always want to harp on whenever it comes to these, is there's like a big difference between us and some people on the internet, because like there's nobody who wants Riftbound to succeed more than Challenger TCG. I can promise you that.
Sure.
We're the biggest private Riftbound community, and we've met so many people that we just love interacting with, going up to these events and having people have us sign their play mats and their cards, and getting to take photos and all this sort of stuff is incredible for us. All of our I don't even know if complaints is the right word, but suggestions and such come from wanting this game to succeed, and knowing that card games, especially early on in their years, as I already said, are very much so built around what the reception is to these sorts of things. It's not important the mistakes that you make. It's more about your responses to these and willingness to change them, because I can tell you, not to go back to the B word again, but as a card shop owner, whenever there's a stale meta, locals end up going down to almost no players. And then as soon as the ban list hits, my locals were always bigger than any previous event like ever. Those were always the hypest locals. Was just as soon as there's a new format, there's new things to do, people get interested. So I never think it's that big of a deal in order to ban cards if you really have to. Obviously, it sucks if they're like expensive cards, such as Aurora, that need to be hit. But it's always better to just do that and rip the Band-Aid off. Do it as one clean motion. Get rid of it. Rip that Band-Aid off and let people commiserate, and then they can all at least commiserate together and come up with something new and interesting that will make the game a little bit more fun for everyone to play.
I need them to not hit Aurora for like 1 month. I just got in. I'm having a great time. I need to not. But I do agree. And you mentioned something a little bit like at the start of this question, Collin, which was the background from LOR, from Legends of Runeterra, which I don't know if a lot of people are aware that Dave Guskin was also lead for like the back half of Legends of Runeterra. And I think my memory is maybe a bit different, because I remember people being very angry that they weren't balancing fast enough, and there was like an Aziralia season that went on for a long while.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting to think about like what's happening with this game currently in the context of what they lived digitally, which I do think they balanced a bit more liberally, but even there they were afraid. I remember them talking about being afraid to balance because they didn't want to lose invested players who had like unlocked certain kinds of decks and didn't want to lose their value. But I would agree with all of you. I think like they need to rip the Band-Aid off. Otherwise, Magic would still have Ancestral Recall in it, which I'm not sure is like a game that I like playing.
Yeah. Time warp.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I would love to hope to believe that if he did experience that's something that he was able to learn from. I only really played LOR during like the very early days of like the first set or two, and it was relatively balanced at that point. There were a couple cards that were quite good, but there was still at least like a pretty healthy meta share on what people were willing to play, and that's really what matters at the end of the day, is like the perception that I can show up to a local event and I'm going to play more than just one deck, and when I see that one deck I just auto lose. Like nobody ever wants a format like that, right? They want some interactive gameplay where their decisions matter, and I never just want to sit across the table from a legend and just be like, oh, I already lost, there's no reason to play the game. That's not fun for anybody.
So in the spirit of positivity and hope for the game, I had prepped other questions that were going to talk about color balance, and I think we're all tired. I did like a mailbag last week, and I was like, I have so many of these to answer, and it was like 20 people asking me about bans and then telling me why things shouldn't get banned. So I'm going to ask you about your favorite cards instead, because I think that's maybe something that people might be interested to hear about. And I'll tee it up for Antyn first, but if you had to pick like a card or even I keep calling them heroes, but they're legends. Is it Yi or does somebody else have your heart?
Oh, if it's Legends, no, it's Volibear. Yeah, I like big cards. I don't know, in card games it's just always fun for me to like ramp into a big thing that does something crazy. That's just like a play style I like. Um so Volibear, like having built-in ramp was like one of the early Legends that really like pulled me in. I also just liked playing Volibear in the game, so like that pulled me in too, but I was just like, "Oh, great. They've made Volibear and he's a ramp guy." Like that's one of my playstyles. I like that. So yeah, like Volibear is definitely one. As far as like cards go, I think I got asked this on the China stream, and I felt like my answer might be kind of just kind of a boring answer, but like a lot of people thought it would be Aurora. It's not Aurora. It's actually Catalyst of Aeons. I just think like this card just it's very simple in what it does. You just it's just a double rampant growth, just ramp 2. But I think like just cards like that are really awesome. Things that pull you a full turn ahead of your opponent in resources. You're basically skipping a turn in order to double up on resources. On the next turn and play things that are much larger than your opponent, and I just like that play style in all games. So I think that Catalyst was a cool card in this game.
Awesome choice. Explosive Vegetation in Magic for
Yeah.
for the enjoyers.
Yep.
Yeah. Alex, what about you?
So these are the questions. Anytime someone asks me my top 5 or top favorite thing, I never have the prepared answer, but the moment I get off of here, I promise you I'll be messaging you back and being like, wait. I know the answer to this. And Riftbound for me has been more about the cards that I hate than the cards that I like. And I can tell you
It's
the
the
card that I
positivity
dislike.
section.
Well,
Yeah.
I can tell you the card. I can tell you the card I dislike the most, and it's not a card people are even talking about for a ban. It's just a card I do not enjoy playing against, and that is Ferris Forerunner. My God, do I hate that card? I absolutely despise Ferris Forerunner. So I'm being positive in the fact that I can easily identify cards that I do not enjoy playing against.
You enjoy all games that do not include that specific card.
Yes, I enjoy all games that do not include Ferris Forerunner. For cards I like, are there any particular cards that speak to me? No, I do. I know I played a lot of Rek'Sai. I like the Rek'Sai Legend. God, I'm trying to think if there's any cards that really speak to me. But there's like nothing out there. I kind of like the way Victor plays. I like the idea of Victor. I haven't really got the balls to get up and actually play Victor in a major event, but I like the idea of Victor, the legend, just making a token every turn, backed by all this like heavy density of removal spells. I guess I really like the card Singularity, I guess, probably to the dismay of Collin, because that's like his Ferris Forerunner. But yeah, I don't think I have I'm sure as soon as, like I said, the moment I hit that end call button, I'm going to have an answer to this question. But off the top of my head,
I was going to say,
not.
I have one idea based on one of our testing sessions that's kind of memorable for me. It was when you put Draven Vanquisher in your Rek'Sai deck. I don't think I'd ever seen you as giddy for a card as when you were just like playing Draven Vanquisher and you're getting like your gold tokens and the
Yeah, I
additional
mean, that
might, and
was.
you're like, this card's busted. And
It was like a light bulb
moment.
moment more than anything for me, where I was like, why didn't I play this to begin with? And then like the next light bulb moment was like, why aren't I just playing Obelisk of Power now? And oh, look, now I'm just every other deck in the format. So yes, it was more the light bulb moment than it is actually liking Draven Vanquisher as a card. I think that card is like kind of broken. But yeah, I have a list of cards in other games that I really enjoyed. This one, there hasn't been anything that's like really out there design wise. In the next set, I've seen some stuff, some cool tricks that I really like, but nothing that's currently in the game so far.
You could, I mean, if you want to shout out an Unleashed card, that's also fine.
So I like when they explained to me how the Rengar 5-drop works, I was like, oh my God, Dead Bloom at reaction speed. Are you kidding me? So yeah, for those who don't know, the Rengar 5-drop, as I'm being told it's ruled right now, it's a 6-might 5-drop, 1 power that has it has ambush, and it says it can be played to an occupied enemy battlefield. So apparently how that works is your opponent attacks the battlefield, you can just flash it in like it's Dead Bloom and come there. And then with the Rengar champion or legend, it gets +1. So this is a 7 might for 5 reaction speed Dead Bloom.
Can't be countered.
So like that card,
Yeah.
can't be countered. That card sounds hyped to me, especially if it's in the chosen champ zone, and I can just like, you know what, I'll just pass with 5 up. What are you gonna do? Can't attack me. I've got the 7 might guy that can come in at any point. And then that with the chosen the signature spell. So like Blink Brynhere's on their turn, or like with the Bramble back, the guy that says when you conquer, you trigger your conquer effect again. You can put the spear that says your conquers become your holds and vice versa, and then put the Triforce on it, and just like you can actually, if you have double Triforce plus the spear, you can actually just straight OTK them if you go attack, if you are able to attack and then get to the other side as well. So I think that's kind of that's pretty cool in my mind. So
I know you've never played Magic, Alex, but this sounds to me like you are at heart a red deck player. And you enjoy hyper aggro and ending the game, which I deeply respect.
In recent years, I've come more around on aggressive strategies, but I never thought I was the type of person who pigeonholed himself to one type of strategy. I think so. The lead designer of Argent Saga, who's a friend of mine, his name's Jeff Jones. He once asked me when we were working on the game, he said, "What's your favorite type of deck? What's your favorite style of deck?" And my answer, I remember I said the best deck is my, and I've in recent years I've changed a little bit that philosophy, but I remember at the time, this is 2019ish, I said and he said, "No, seriously, what's your favorite type of deck?" And I said, whatever the best deck is, whatever wins me the most games, that's my favorite type of deck. And I very much was of the opinion that getting attached to a certain style of play was more of a weakness than anything. And that's why I said, like in Force Will, I played a different deck every single week. I didn't care. I just played the deck that I thought was going to do the best at the time. Whereas in recent years, I've grown a little more attached to certain play styles. So, yes, to answer your question, I have gravitated a little bit more towards aggressive strategies, I think, in recent years.
I mention it because I think I'm very much where you have been with the game, where I'm like, I like a lot of different stuff, but nothing has really been like, I haven't found something that I could say like is my favorite in the first 2 sets. And then I saw Rengar and I was like, oh, now we're talking. I'm not sure my locals are gonna enjoy it though, for seeing me play it against them.
I don't even know if the legend's that crazy, but I like the Sig spell. I like the chosen champ. So we'll see. I mean, I could play it for like a week and be like, this deck sucks, man. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but we'll see where we get. I just something that caught my eye immediately. And then, like, the resurrection card caught my eye, but I think that's more broken than it is fun. So
we are all gonna have to live with yellow purple in about like 4 months' time. So then we'll all get
infinite tokens.
We'll all get to deal with reanimators. That's in our near future. Collin, what about you? Favorite card or favorite legend, or both?
It's kind of a difficult question for me. My playstyle is a little bit kind of opposite of Alex, and the way that I previously in previous games decided to choose my deck. And even starting in set 1, the reason why I went with set is that I like the game to go as long as possible, just because I feel like the more decision points that I have to I outplay my opponent is what really gives me the competitive edge. You know, it's a lot easier to outplay your opponent in 100 interactions than it is in only 1, where if they just make the correct decision in that 1, it's difficult. So my current favorite card is certainly Called Shot, just given how strong it is as a card, but additionally just because being able to like cycle through my entire deck, obviously this is all broken as possible, so give that with an asterisk. At no point do I think any of this is fair or should exist. But one of my strengths from playing Flesh and Blood is that deck, or that game, revolves around discarding cards to play other cards, and when you discard them, they go to the bottom of your deck. And it's called pitch stacking in that deck, or in that game. Apologies. And what my goal was in the deck that I played was to kind of go through your entire deck and then memorize the order of your deck and then use that information in order to have the best chance to win, because at some point you just know the entire order of your deck, which obviously in any card game is very strong. And I think I've been able to leverage that playing the Miracle Draven deck for the couple events that I've been able to. So at least from like a playstyle perspective, that it creates these situations where I'm able to outplay my opponents by just knowing the exact order of my deck and being able to memorize that. And I think that's always super cool whenever I have those moments where I'm like, oh, I know 6 cards down is the bushwhack that I need in order to win the game from this spot. So then I figure out how to go exactly 6 cards down. And then sure enough, my bushwhack's right there sitting for me. And my brain just kind of like does all that for me. So that's why I really like Called Shot as a card, is it really gives me that situation to outplay my opponent. But I think that's more because it facilitates a specific play style more so than it is the card itself. If I were to just call like one card that gives me joy whenever I see it, it's Primal Strength, actually, of all cards.
Oh.
Playing that card in set 1
That doesn't
into
surprise.
all of like the Kaiser
Whoa,
players.
Primal Strength. Who
Primal
told
Strength.
you that card? I will nail this one home, because when we were testing that set deck, Collin did not want to play that card, and I was very, very hard on playing Primal Strength. I was very insistent that Primal Strength was the juice, and that this was the secret tech card. So I will hop in and yes, I will hop in and take credit for that.
Yeah, you can take credit for that one. So early in our testing, as Alex said, it wasn't a card that I really found as one that it was playable, just because set, as you said that you played the deck, it typically runs very low on resources, so it was very difficult to find the timing window in order to play this card, where every other interaction spell people are playing cap out at like 2 energy. This is a 4 energy card, which is monstrous in this game in terms of trying to use that, especially in a deck that's paying power for pretty much everything it does. But it just created these situations in set 1 where you're just able to outplay your opponent by just either bluffing this card or them not really having the ability to answer this card, given that if they're going to be killing stuff outside of combat, then you can just save it with set ability. So the only time that like these Kaiser decks were ever able to get you was if they got into combat, they broke your guy, you saved it with set, and then they would play their Falling Star afterwards or something like that. And Primal Strength was like the perfect answer for that. And then additionally, there was all the nonsense you could do with set where you would like send a unit in multiple times. So sometimes you would just like on your turn, if they have like a huge Aurora board or something like that, you just Primal Strength your guy, you give it a buff, you send it in as like this big, large number, you kill a couple of guys, and then you save it, and then you like Showstopper back in because the buff stays the entire turn. So I think Primal Strength is probably up there for one of my favorite cards to play with for all of these reasons. So
Getting nostalgic for the set days. Maybe we will
for sure.
We will see him again at some point in the future.
Yeah, I hope so.
But yeah, I realized like while you were describing why you like stack deck, I like got seals back in set 1, and then I watched Randy play Miracle Sivir in Dalian, and I went to my store and I sold them back. I was like, I can't do this with my brain. If I do this for like 7 hours, I'm just gonna get a migraine. So I might as well like tap out now. So it's funny. This is the indication of my future as a competitive player. But yeah, we're close to wrapping up. So the way that I usually end these, I mean, this is the first one I'm doing on the channel, but in my professional life, I tend to ask people, are there questions that I didn't ask you that you would have loved to be asked, or that you'd love to like answer preemptively? And I'm gonna do like a full like turn of the table and start with Antyn.
No, I feel like the interview mostly covered like everything. I felt like all the interview questions mostly covered everything I would want to answer personally.
Cool. I'm gonna go back to Collin while Alex is recovering from a little cough. Any questions for you?
Yeah, I feel like I covered the majority of things that encapsulated this interview, and I thank you for being able to come up with a lot of good questions that really was able to speak our mind on how things are going and kind of explain who we are as a team. I will say that we are a team that is very new to all of this sort of stuff. As we've mentioned a few times through here, we've typically just been kind of like friends hanging out, working on our own specific projects, and trying to change that up for the content side is a little bit difficult for us, especially given that the game is new. We've only been doing this about half a year, maybe. So we're always looking to improve. So if there are ever things that people are not satisfied with what it is that we're doing, we're always open to feedback, always open to change. So I always appreciate it whenever people reach out to me and say, hey, this is something that you did was great, or hey, this is something that I wish you guys did more. All that sort of stuff is quite nice for us. So if you enjoy parts of our content and wish we did something a little bit different or a little bit more, then definitely let me know or any of us know, and we'll always be working to improve wherever we can.
Yeah. Alex, any questions that you wish I would have asked you? Any?
No. I feel that interview did a pretty good job. You covered a very wide array of questions there, so that was no. This has been a great interview. I've really enjoyed it too. Outside of the being a little bit sick.
we work with what we got, right? And then I'm gonna end by just asking you if you have anything that you want to shout out, and this is like where you can do the spiel if you want to, Alex. Like I actually planned it in the switcher.
Okay. So we've talked about Challenger TCG this whole time, but nobody's asked us about the Challenger TCG Metafy. Well, let me tell you about the Challenger TCG Metafy. For just the low price of $10 a month, that's right, one finger for each hand, or 5 fingers for each hand, you can get access to our full Discord. That's got everyone you see here and more pitching in. It's got me, it's got Collin, it's got Antyn. All of us are in there answering questions constantly, but not just us, the rest of our team. Daniel, Coco, Min, Joe, Rossum, Matt, just absolutely everyone in there. Trevor, everybody's in there answering questions. I'm sure I missed someone, so I apologize. And that's just $10 a month on top of the now 600 other people that we've got in there chatting, communicating, posting deck ideas. It's just, it's the, like Collin said, it's the largest private community in all of Riftbound right now. And I would argue it's the #1 community in all of Riftbound. For $20 a month, you get access to all of our deck lists. And I don't just mean decks that we feel like sharing with you. I mean literally everything. Every deck list we've ever won a tournament with, played in a tournament, even the most nonsensical ones that we throw away a day later, that's all in there. If we have a secret tech, you have a secret tech. If we break the format day one, you broke the format day one with us. We don't hold anything back. You don't get 7 out of 8 sideboard cards from us. You get 8 out of 8 sideboard cards. There's no secret paywall to get more. Just $20 a month, you get absolutely everything. For $50 a month, you get access to our VOD submission reviews, where we take one VOD, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. We take a VOD from you, the community, once a week, and we review it. Collin will typically do that himself. We'll record it, so if you can't show up, that's fine. You can still submit. We'll review your VOD, and you can watch it back later. And then we get on stage, and you can watch us review those VODs live as well. And those are submitted by you, the community. So it's pretty much a free VOD review. If that weren't enough, we're also giving you discounts on all of our guides. At the $10 tier, you're getting 33% off all our guides. At the gold tier, you're getting 50% off all our guides. At the diamond tier, you get every single guide we have absolutely free as long as you're a diamond member. That's unparalleled value. We charge $30 a guide. So you get, just for this guide, you're getting, or just for the $50 tier right now, I think we have 6 paid guides. You're getting $135, I believe it is, free, or just for $50. So yeah, that's my spiel. I'm a little sick now, so my sales pitch is a little off. This caught me a bit off guard, but that's the best I can give you for now. But yeah, please guys, check it out. Metafy, Challenger TCG. We've got other stuff there too. We've got our guides. We do coaching there as well. And that link, I'm sure, will be posted somewhere in the comments or the description of some sort. So yeah, thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Any-
I definitely want to shout out everyone who supports us. Thank you, everyone who subscribes to our Metafy. That's really what matters, is our community that's supported us through everything that we've been doing, has allowed us to do this full time, and we hope to continue producing the great content that we have for everybody to become the best that they can. You know, it was one of my proudest moments was top 4 of Vegas, not only because I was there, but one of our diamond subs, Shizzle, was there with me. We both made top 4, and he was on just like a variant of my mid-range Draven list, crushing everybody. He actually crushed Prismat in top 8 of Vegas, and it's just really nice to see that like all the hard work we're putting into all these guides and videos is really paying off for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, shout out to Topjack GG, our sponsor. They are, as we've mentioned multiple times in this video already, the best tournament software out there. We also just had a new sponsor lock us in, Element Sleeves. So if you guys aren't familiar with Element Sleeves, they're kind of like katanas at a pretty good price rate. So check out Element. We should have more promotion and links to them coming out in our content soon. This was a pretty recent sponsorship, but yeah, shout out to all our sponsors. You guys help us keep doing what we're doing, so thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for your time and for the interview, and to the audience as well. And if you have any questions for the team, this interview should be posted on my channel, but also the Challenger TCG channel, and you can ask questions in the comments, and obviously in the Discord if you join. Have a nice one.
Bye-bye.
Take care.